Hello, and welcome to our channel. It's a pleasure to have you here. If you enjoy this kind of content, I invite you to subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell so you'll be notified whenever we post something new. Thank you for joining us, and I hope you enjoy today's fantastic story. On a sunny spring afternoon in Charleston, South Carolina, Michael and Jasmine Walker were sitting on their porch, enjoying the gentle breeze that rustled the leaves of the trees. Michael, a 40-year-old man with a serene expression and eyes that conveyed wisdom, was engrossed in an article about technology on his tablet. Jasmine, a 38-year-old woman with an elegant presence and a smile that lit up any room, was leafing through the pages of a book on civil rights. They lived a peaceful and comfortable life, the result of years of hard work and dedication. Suddenly, Jasmine's phone vibrated on the table. She picked up the device and smiled when she saw Richard's name on the screen. "It's Richard," she said, looking at Michael. Michael looked up from his tablet and smiled. "Answer it. It must be something interesting. He never calls just to chat." Jasmine answered the phone, and Richard's warm voice came through the line. "Jasmine, how are you and Michael?" "We're great, Richard. And you? How's everything?" "I'm doing well. Actually, I'm calling because I have a proposal. Would you both be free on Friday night? I'd like you to come to the restaurant for a special dinner. It's your wedding anniversary, isn't it?" Jasmine smiled and glanced at Michael, who raised his eyebrows in anticipation. "Yes, it is. That's so kind of you, Richard. We'd be honored to come." "Perfect. Make sure you come. I want this evening to be memorable for both of you. See you on Friday, then?" "Absolutely, Richard. We can't wait." After hanging up the phone, Jasmine shared the conversation with Michael, who smiled with enthusiasm. "Richard has always been a loyal friend. This is going to be great." "I know," Jasmine said, still smiling. "He really wants it to be a special night." As Friday approached, the couple began to make plans for the evening. Each year, their wedding anniversary was not only a time to celebrate their love, but also their shared achievements and challenges. They recalled how they had met Richard many years ago when he was still struggling to open his restaurant. Their friendship had grown over the years, and seeing him now as the owner of one of Charleston's most renowned restaurants was a source of pride. The night before the dinner, as Michael and Jasmine chose their outfits, their conversation turned to the past. Michael picked out a dark gray suit that fit him perfectly, while Jasmine chose a navy blue dress that highlighted her natural elegance. "Do you remember when we went to the grand opening of Richard's restaurant?" Michael asked as he adjusted his tie in the mirror. "How could I forget? He was so nervous, and everything went so well." "It feels like it was just yesterday," Jasmine replied, adjusting her earrings. "And look where he is now. I have a feeling tonight is going to be special, not just for us, but also because it's another way to celebrate our friendship with him." Jasmine agreed with a smile, saying as she finished getting ready, "Let's make this night a celebration of what we've accomplished together in every sense." With anticipation in the air, Michael and Jasmine knew the evening promised to be memorable, but they had no idea what awaited them at Richard's restaurant. On Friday, the Charleston sun set slowly, painting the sky with hues of orange and purple. Michael and Jasmine were excited for the special night ahead. At home, the couple began getting ready for dinner. The atmosphere was filled with a mix of laughter and calm conversations, typical of a couple who had shared many years together. Michael, with his ever-confident and calm presence, was in the bedroom choosing the perfume he would wear that night. He held up 2 bottles and asked Jasmine, who was in the bathroom applying lipstick, "Do you prefer the woody scent or the citrus one for tonight?" Jasmine looked at him through the mirror and smiled. "The woody one. It always suits you better." Michael agreed, spraying the perfume. "I think you're right, as always." As he adjusted his shirt cuffs, Jasmine entered the bedroom, putting the finishing touches on her navy blue dress. The dress, which flowed smoothly over her figure, highlighted her natural elegance. She approached Michael, who was finishing tying his tie. "You look handsome, darling," she said, smoothing the fabric of his tie. "You look stunning, Jasmine," he replied, admiring her. "Richard will need to work hard to make the dinner live up to you." They laughed together, and Jasmine embraced him, feeling the familiarity and comfort that only years of true love could provide. As they prepared to leave, the couple reminisced about past anniversaries and spoke about how much they had grown together. Do you remember our first wedding anniversary? That dinner at the little Italian restaurant? Jasmine asked, with a nostalgic tone. How could I forget? The food was delicious, but we spent more time laughing than eating, Michael replied with a broad smile. That was the beginning of so many traditions we've created together. Jasmine nodded thoughtfully. And now, so many years later, here we are. We've achieved so much, faced challenges we never expected, but we always came out stronger. Michael took her hand, intertwining his fingers with hers. That's because we've always had each other. And tonight is to celebrate that. Jasmine smiled and squeezed his hand. Let's make this night a celebration not only of our love, but also of all the people who have been part of our journey. Soon, ready to go, they looked at each other in the mirror, admiring how they made a beautiful pair. Michael, in his dark gray suit, exuded sophistication and confidence. Jasmine, in her navy blue dress, radiated grace and elegance. Are we ready? Michael asked, offering his arm to Jasmine. We're ready, she replied, taking his arm with a smile. They left the house and got into the car, heading to Richard's restaurant, where they anticipated a night of celebration surrounded by luxury and good company. Little did they know that the evening would bring not only moments of joy, but also an unexpected challenge that would test the value of their friendship and the love they shared. When Michael and Jasmine's car pulled up in front of the restaurant, the Charleston night sky was fully dark, dotted with stars. The soft, elegant lights of the restaurant's exterior illuminated the entrance, giving the place an air of exclusivity and refinement. Richard's restaurant, known as the Magnolia, was one of the most prestigious establishments in the city, frequented by politicians, businesspeople, and prominent figures from the local society. Michael stopped the car in front of the valet, and a young man in uniform quickly approached to assist them. "Good evening, sir, ma'am," he said with a polite smile as he opened the door for Jasmine. "Good evening," Jasmine replied, stepping out of the car gracefully and adjusting her navy blue dress. Michael handed the keys to the valet and, taking Jasmine's hand, guided her to the restaurant's entrance. They walked through the glass doors and into a lobby decorated with polished marble and crystal chandeliers. The interior exuded sophistication, with impeccably set tables and a clientele speaking in hushed tones, enjoying the refined atmosphere. "This place keeps getting more beautiful," Jasmine remarked, looking around and admiring the decor. "Richard really did an excellent job here," Michael agreed as they approached the reception desk. At the reception desk, a young woman was organizing the reservations. She looked up at the couple with a neutral expression, but upon seeing them, her professional smile faded, replaced by a hint of skepticism. Karen, a 32-year-old white woman with impeccably styled blonde hair and an air of superiority, couldn't help but judge the couple based on their appearance. "Good evening," Michael said politely as they stopped at the counter. "We have a reservation for two under the name Walker." Karen quickly examined them, noting their elegant attire, but her prejudiced assumptions prevailed. She consulted the reservation list, pretending to search for the name while maintaining an indifferent demeanor. "Walker," she murmured, lingering longer than necessary as if trying to buy time. I don't see that name here. Are you sure the reservation was made for tonight?" Jasmine exchanged a confused glance with Michael. "Yes, it was made by Richard, the owner of the restaurant," she said, keeping her calm. Hearing Richard's name, Karen hesitated but continued with her cold attitude. "All right, but unfortunately, I don't have that reservation here. And we're completely full tonight. Maybe you could try somewhere else?" Michael and Jasmine looked at each other, surprised and somewhat uncomfortable. Politeness and patience were hallmarks of the couple, but the situation was starting to bother them. "Are you sure there isn't a mistake?" Michael asked, trying to resolve the situation diplomatically. "We're here at Richard's personal invitation," Karen sighed, with a hint of impatience in her voice. "Yes, I'm sure. And as I said, we're fully booked. You should try another place. Perhaps one that suits what you're looking for better." Her tone was clear and offensive, implying that Michael and Jasmine weren't suited for the restaurant. Jasmine felt her heart tighten but stood firm beside Michael. "This is unacceptable," Michael thought, beginning to lose his patience. "We didn't come here to be treated like this." But before he could respond, a familiar figure appeared in the background. Richard, who had been talking to a customer in another part of the dining room, noticed the discomfort at the entrance and immediately recognized his longtime friends. With quick steps, Richard approached the couple. He greeted them with a warm smile, but his expression soon changed as he sensed the tension in the air. "Michael, Jasmine, I'm so glad you're here," Richard said, embracing each of them. Turning to Karen, his tone grew more serious. "Karen, is there a problem here?" Karen looked visibly nervous as she realized she had made a serious mistake. "Oh, Mr. Richard, I was just—" Before she could finish her sentence, Richard interrupted her, maintaining his composure. "These are my personal friends, and I made the reservation myself. There's no excuse for any inappropriate treatment." The silence that followed was heavy. Karen was left speechless, her face growing pale as she understood the gravity of what she had just done. Michael and Jasmine, on the other hand, felt a mix of relief and discomfort over the situation that had unfolded. "Please, follow me," Richard said, guiding the couple with a reassuring smile. "I'll make sure you have the wonderful evening you deserve." Michael and Jasmine followed Richard, but the tension from the reception still lingered in the air. They knew the night would be marked not only by celebration, but also by an event that would deeply affect everyone involved. As Richard led Michael and Jasmine through the restaurant, the surroundings seemed to return to normal, but the tension between the couple and Karen remained palpable. They passed elegantly set tables with smiling patrons enjoying sophisticated dishes and fine wines. The candles on the tables cast a soft glow that contrasted with the coldness they had just faced. Richard stopped near a table in a more private corner, overlooking a beautiful garden lit with delicate lights. "Here we are. This is one of the best spots in the house. I hope you enjoy the evening," he said with a warm smile, trying to ease the situation. "Thank you, Richard," Michael replied, still a bit unsettled by the initial reception. Jasmine smiled in agreement, though there was a hint of discomfort in her eyes. Before Richard could step away to return to his duties, Karen suddenly appeared beside them, trying to maintain her composure. She held 2 menus in her hands, but her face still showed a mix of tension and uncertainty. "Sir, can I speak with you for a moment?" she asked, nervously looking at Richard. Richard gave her a brief, assessing look, realizing that Karen still hadn't grasped the seriousness of the situation. "Karen, what's so urgent?" "I just wanted to make sure you're aware that we're very busy tonight," she said, trying to sound professional but betraying her prejudice. "And, well, maybe it would be better if I attended to other customers since I have a list of important reservations." Michael and Jasmine exchanged glances. What was happening was clear, and anger began to bubble silently within them. Richard, who had always been a man of remarkable patience, took a deep breath and said calmly, "Karen, the restaurant is full because our guests appreciate what we offer here. Quality food and excellent service, regardless of who they are. Michael and Jasmine are our guests tonight, and I see no reason why they should be treated any differently from any other customer." "But, Mr. Richard, I was just thinking maybe they don't," Karen stammered, struggling to find words to justify her behavior but failing. Jasmine, who had remained silent until now, could no longer contain her feelings. "Karen," she began, with a firm but polite tone, "are you implying that we don't belong here?" Karen's face flushed with embarrassment, and she mumbled a response. "No, of course not. I just thought maybe you'd be more comfortable somewhere else." "More comfortable?" Michael repeated, his tone laced with a dangerous calm. "We're perfectly comfortable wherever we are, Karen. But clearly, you're the one who's uncomfortable with our presence here." Richard, realizing the situation was deteriorating quickly, intervened. "Karen, we do not treat our customers this way, and we do not treat our friends this way. I am deeply disappointed in your attitude tonight." Karen lowered her eyes, finally understanding how wrong she had been. I'm sorry, Mr. Richard. I'm truly sorry." "Apologies are the least that's expected," Jasmine said, now with a more controlled but still firm tone. "But apologies don't change what's happened." "She's right," Michael added. "It takes more than words to correct attitudes like this." Richard nodded, looking at Karen with seriousness. "You're right, Michael. Such attitudes have no place here. Karen, I'm going to ask you to go to the office now. We need to discuss your future here." Karen, still stunned, nodded silently and walked away, looking smaller than when she first approached them. Richard turned to Michael and Jasmine with an expression of regret. I'm sorry about this. This is not how we run our restaurant, and it's definitely not how we treat our friends, he said sincerely. Michael sighed, trying to shake off the frustration he felt. Richard, we know you don't tolerate this kind of behavior, but situations like this are more common than they should be. Jasmine, holding Michael's hand, added, We appreciate you stepping in, Richard. But this is something that needs to be addressed on a broader scale, not just here, but everywhere. You're absolutely right, Richard replied, his voice filled with conviction. And I will do whatever it takes to ensure this doesn't happen again here. You have my word. The couple nodded, feeling somewhat reassured knowing Richard was on their side. However, the wound of prejudice was still fresh, and they knew the impact of that night would be long-lasting. With Richard stepping away to deal with Karen, Michael and Jasmine sat at their table, trying to regain the celebratory mood they had planned. Although the start of the evening had been bitter, they decided not to let it ruin the moment they had been looking forward to. Yet the experience still weighed on their minds, reminding them that despite all their successes, they still faced challenges that should never have to be faced. As Michael and Jasmine tried to enjoy their dinner, Richard entered his office, where he found Karen sitting in a chair, clearly uncomfortable. She knew the situation wasn't in her favor, and that the consequences of her actions that night could be serious. Richard closed the door behind him and remained silent for a few moments, observing Karen. Finally, he approached and sat down across from her, placing his hands on the table. Karen, Richard began, with a firm but controlled tone. Before you say anything, I want you to understand the gravity of what happened out there. We're here to talk about respect, dignity, and what it truly means to serve everyone with excellence. Karen looked down, ashamed. Mr. Richard, I know I made a mistake. I wasn't thinking clearly. Let me explain. Richard interrupted her, raising a hand. What you did was judge people by the color of their skin, by their appearance. And that is unacceptable, Karen. We cannot, and will not, tolerate this kind of behavior here. Karen started to speak, but the words seemed to escape her. I didn't mean to offend anyone. I just thought that. Thought what? Richard asked, with a hint of incredulity in his voice. That they weren't worthy of being here? That they didn't have the same right as every other customer? Karen, you've worked here long enough to know that I built this restaurant on the principles of respect and inclusion. Anyone who walks through those doors should be treated with the same courtesy and the same level of service, no matter who they are. Karen shrank in her chair, feeling the weight of Richard's words. I'm truly sorry, Mr. Richard. I never meant to cause so many problems. Richard sighed deeply, rubbing his face with his hand. I believe you're sorry, Karen, but remorse doesn't erase the damage done. Michael and Jasmine are longtime friends of mine, but even if they weren't, what happened cannot be ignored. They are people who deserve respect, just like any other human being. He paused, letting his words hang in the heavy silence of the room. Karen, I've given you multiple opportunities here. You've been a competent employee, but what happened today makes me question whether you truly understand what it means to work at this restaurant. I know I was wrong, Mr. Richard, Karen said, almost in tears. Please, give me another chance. I promise I'll do better. I really need this job. Richard looked at her, his heart torn between empathy and the need to uphold the integrity of what he had built in the restaurant. Karen, it's not just about a mistake. It's about fundamental character and how you see and treat others. If I allow you to stay here without consequences, I'm telling all the other staff that this kind of behavior is acceptable. And that's not something I can allow. Karen swallowed hard, realizing what was coming. So, you're going to fire me? Richard nodded slowly. Yes, Karen. I'm going to need you to leave your position here. This isn't something I do lightly, but it's necessary. I hope you take this experience as a lesson and think twice before judging someone unfairly in the future. Karen nodded, tears finally streaming down her face. I understand, Mr. Richard. I'm so sorry. Richard stood up and walked to the door, holding the doorknob for a moment before opening it. I'll have the manager handle the final details with you. I wish you the best going forward, Karen. She stood up slowly and left the office, leaving Richard alone, reflecting on what had just happened. He knew he had done the right thing, but that didn't lessen the weight of his decision. He had always prided himself on his restaurant being a welcoming place where everyone felt valued, and he couldn't allow an incident like this to tarnish that reputation. As Richard returned to the main dining area, he saw Michael and Jasmine talking to each other. Jasmine's smile was more subdued than usual, and Michael seemed to be trying to distract her, but the weight of what had happened still lingered. Richard approached and sat down next to the couple. "I've handled the situation with Karen," he said, looking at both of them sincerely. "She is no longer part of our team." Michael nodded slowly. "Thank you for that, Richard. I know it couldn't have been easy for you." "It wasn't," Richard admitted, "but it was necessary. And I'm committed to ensuring that something like this never happens here again." Jasmine placed her hand over Richard's, her gaze full of understanding. "We know you did what you could, Richard, and we're grateful for that. But tonight showed us that there's still a lot more work to be done. All of us." "I agree," Richard said, his voice filled with determination. "And I will do whatever it takes to ensure this place remains a welcoming and respectful environment for everyone. You have my word." The conversation had taken on a lighter tone, and gradually, the atmosphere around the table began to soften. They still had the rest of the night ahead of them and were determined not to let what had happened ruin what was supposed to be a celebration of love and friendship. Despite the challenges they faced, the friendship between Richard, Michael, and Jasmine emerged stronger that night, showing that respect and dignity are values that should always prevail, no matter the circumstances. After Karen's departure, the restaurant, the Magnolia, seemed to regain its calm and sophisticated atmosphere. The other patrons continued to enjoy their meals, oblivious to the drama that had unfolded minutes earlier. However, for Michael and Jasmine, the evening had taken an unexpected turn, bringing up reflections they both preferred not to revisit. Seated at the table, with deliciously prepared dishes in front of them, Michael and Jasmine still felt the impact of what had happened. Though they tried to focus on the food and light conversation, the episode of discrimination was impossible to ignore. "It's hard to believe that in the 21st century, we still have to deal with this," Jasmine said, absent-mindedly poking at her salad with a fork. Michael sighed, setting his wine glass down after a sip. "I know, love, but unfortunately, prejudice isn't something that disappears overnight. We grew up learning how to cope with it, but that doesn't make it any easier." Jasmine looked up at him, her eyes reflecting a mix of sadness and anger. "I just wish things were different, you know? That the color of our skin wasn't always the defining factor in how people treat us." Michael nodded, reaching out to touch Jasmine's hand. "I wish the same, Jasmine. But what happened tonight is a reminder that, even when we think we're in a safe space, prejudice can catch us off guard. We can't let it bring us down." Jasmine squeezed Michael's hand, seeking comfort in his touch. "You're right. We can't let this define us. But it's frustrating, the way we were treated, as if we didn't belong here." "I know. And I felt the same way," Michael responded, his expression serious. "But what bothers me the most is that Karen didn't even try to get to know us before passing judgment. She made a decision based solely on the color of our skin, without even considering who we are or what we might have accomplished." Jasmine let out a deep sigh. "It's a constant battle, Michael. Proving our worth, our capabilities, our dignity. It seems like it's never enough. There's always someone ready to put us down." Michael watched her for a moment, admiring her strength and determination, even in the face of adversity. "But Jasmine, what defines us isn't their opinion, but how we choose to respond. We've overcome so much together, and someone like Karen isn't going to make us doubt who we are." Jasmine smiled, feeling a bit lighter after Michael's words. "You always know just what to say to calm me down, don't you?" Michael smiled back. "That's because I know that, at the end of the day, you're the strongest person I know. And no matter what happens, we're always going to move forward." They continued their meal in silence for a few minutes, enjoying the food and each other's company, even though the weight of the evening still lingered over them. The restaurant seemed quieter now, almost as if the atmosphere was trying to make up for the tension that had occurred. After a few minutes of silence, Jasmine broke the mood with a question that reflected the anguish she felt. "Do you think this will ever change, Michael? That our children, if we have any, will live in a world where they won't be judged by the color of their skin? Michael thought for a moment before responding. I hope so, Jasmine. But change is slow, and it's something that needs to start in the minds and hearts of people. We can't change the world on our own, but we can do our part, like we did today. By facing these situations with our heads held high, we show that we won't be intimidated or defeated by prejudice. Jasmine nodded, feeling a mix of hope and concern. I want to believe that, Michael. I want to believe that one day things will be different. Michael squeezed her hand, looking into her eyes with determination. They will be. And in the meantime, we'll keep fighting for a better future, together. The couple finished their dinner with that silent promise between them. They knew the battle against prejudice was long and arduous, but they were determined to face every challenge that came their way, knowing that as long as they had each other, they could withstand anything. When the waiter brought the check, Richard reappeared beside their table, looking at the couple with a mix of regret and gratitude. Michael, Jasmine, I want you to know that tonight's dinner is on me. It's the least I can do after what happened. Michael smiled gently, declining with a gesture. We appreciate it, Richard, but we want to pay for our meal. We don't want this incident to define our friendship or the experience we've always had here. Richard nodded, respecting their decision. I understand, but know that you're always welcome here. I'll do everything I can to make sure you never go through something like this in my restaurant again. Jasmine smiled at Richard, appreciating the gesture. Thank you, Richard. We know we can count on you, and that means a lot to us. Richard said his goodbyes, leaving the couple alone once more. Michael and Jasmine paid the bill and stood up to leave. As they walked toward the exit, hand in hand, they knew that night would remain in their memories, not just for the prejudice they faced, but for the way they chose to respond and move forward, stronger than ever. After an emotionally intense evening, Michael and Jasmine arrived home in silence. The drive back was filled with quiet reflections and exchanged glances, each processing what had happened. As soon as they entered the warmth of their home, the accumulated tension began to dissipate, but the need to discuss the events of the night still lingered. Michael closed the door behind them and turned to Jasmine. It was a long night, wasn't it? He said, his voice tired but full of affection. Jasmine sighed, slipping off her shoes and placing them aside. It was, Michael. A night I hoped would be different. They headed to the living room, where Jasmine settled on the couch while Michael went to the kitchen to prepare 2 cups of tea. The house, decorated with details that reflected the couple's personalities and union, provided a cozy contrast to the events of the night. Michael returned with the steaming cups and sat beside Jasmine, handing her one. Here you go. I thought a warm cup of tea might help calm us down. Jasmine accepted the tea with a soft smile. Thank you, love. I needed this. They sipped in silence for a few moments, the warmth of the tea offering a sense of comfort. Finally, Jasmine broke the silence, looking at Michael with a thoughtful expression. Do you think we handled that the best way we could? Michael pondered for a moment before answering. I think we did what we needed to do. We couldn't just ignore what happened, and I believe our response was the right one. We weren't aggressive, but we didn't let it slide either. Jasmine nodded, still deep in thought. I know it was the right thing to do, but I still feel tired. Tired of having to fight against this kind of thing, of always having to prove that we have the right to be wherever we are. Michael placed his hand over hers, giving it a gentle squeeze. I understand, Jasmine. I feel that way too. But it's important to remember that by doing this, we're not just standing up for ourselves, we're also inspiring others to do the same. Every time we face these situations, we show that prejudice has no place in our lives. Jasmine looked at Michael, admiring his strength and resilience. I admire so much the way you handle these things, Michael. You always seem so calm and composed. Michael smiled, a smile that was both weary and affectionate. Believe me, it's not easy. There are moments when I want to explode, to scream. But I've learned that if we let anger consume us, they win. They want to see us lose control, to prove that we're exactly what they think we are. And I refuse to give them that satisfaction. Jasmine nodded, fully understanding what he was saying. I know you're right. It's just that sometimes, after so many battles, I wonder if things will ever really change. I wonder that too, Michael admitted. But then I remember how many obstacles we've already overcome, how our life together is proof that change is possible. We are living the change, Jasmine. It might not be as fast as we'd like, but it's happening. Jasmine smiled softly, feeling a bit more at ease. You always know how to give me hope, and I think you're right. We need to focus on the progress we've made, not just the battles we still have ahead. Michael wrapped Jasmine in a loving embrace, feeling the warmth of her presence and the strength of their love. Exactly. And as long as we're together, we can face anything. Jasmine closed her eyes, relaxing in Michael's arms. I love you, Michael, and I'm grateful to have you by my side in moments like this. I love you too, Jasmine, he replied, kissing her forehead. And I'm grateful for you. Together, we're stronger than any prejudice, stronger than any adversity. They stayed like that for a few minutes, simply enjoying each other's company, letting the comfort of their home and the strength of their union dissipate the remnants of the night. Finally, Jasmine pulled back slightly, looking at Michael with a lighter expression. I think we need something to take our minds off things. How about we watch a movie? Something light, that'll make us laugh? Michael smiled. Great idea. I'll get the popcorn. As Michael headed to the kitchen, Jasmine settled onto the couch, picking up the remote to choose a movie. The weight of the night was still there, but with each small action, they were healing, reconnecting, and reaffirming what truly mattered. Love, respect, and the life they were building together. And so, as the sound of popcorn popping filled the kitchen, the couple prepared to end the night not with sadness or frustration, but with the certainty that despite everything, they would continue to face the world's challenges with courage and hope, side by side. The next day, the sun shone brightly over Savannah, and the city seemed more vibrant than ever. The incident at the restaurant still weighed on Michael and Jasmine's minds, but life went on, and they were determined to keep moving forward. To relieve stress and share their experiences, they decided to invite their close friends, Terrence and Lisa, over for brunch at their home. Terrence and Lisa were a couple Michael and Jasmine had known for years. They understood well the difficulties and challenges Michael and Jasmine faced, as they were also Black and dealt with similar situations in their daily lives. The friendship between the four was strengthened by mutual empathy and support, and they knew they could count on each other during tough times. While Michael was in the kitchen preparing eggs and pancakes, Jasmine set the table on the porch, decorating it with fresh flowers and carefully arranged silverware. Soon, Terrence and Lisa arrived, bringing with them a platter of fresh fruit and warm smiles. Good morning, friends, Lisa exclaimed, hugging Jasmine. How are you guys? We're doing okay, Jasmine replied with a smile that hid some of the weight she was still feeling. But we had a bit of a rough night. Terrence frowned with concern as he hugged Michael. What happened? Michael sighed, bringing the platter of scrambled eggs to the table. It's a long story, but basically, we had an unpleasant encounter with prejudice at the restaurant last night. Lisa looked at Jasmine with empathy. Oh, girl, I'm so sorry about that. Do you want to talk about what happened? Jasmine nodded, sitting down at the table as the others did the same. We went to Richard's restaurant to celebrate, but as soon as we got there, one of the employees, Karen, treated us horribly. She basically judged us by the color of our skin, assuming we couldn't afford to eat there. Terrence shook his head in disbelief. I can't believe that happened at Richard's place. He's always been so careful to maintain a welcoming environment. Exactly, Michael replied. Richard was devastated when he found out. He took immediate action and fired Karen. But still, the damage was done. Lisa reached across the table to hold Jasmine's hand. That's so frustrating, Jasmine. You shouldn't have to go through something like that, especially in a place where you're supposed to feel safe. Jasmine nodded, feeling her emotions resurface. That's exactly it. We've been going there for years, always feeling comfortable. It was like, all of a sudden, that sense of security was ripped away from us. Michael looked at their friends, seeing the seriousness in their expressions. We know we're not alone in this fight, but sometimes it's hard to keep our heads up. Terrence, with his deep, steady voice, spoke with determination. You have every right to feel that way, but you can't let it bring you down. These situations are terrible, but they also remind us of what we're up against. We have to keep going, showing that we're stronger than any prejudice. Lisa nodded emphatically. That's right. You two are a wonderful couple, and that bothers people like Karen. But don't let other people's hate dim your light. Terrence and I are here for whatever you need. Jasmine smiled, feeling a bit lighter. Thank you, Lisa. It's good to know we have friends like you to support us. That's what friends are for, Terrence said with a warm smile. And since we're all here, how about we toast to our friendship and the strength we find in moments like this? Michael picked up the bottle of orange juice and filled their glasses. That sounds like a great idea. They raised their glasses, toasting not just to friendship, but to the resilience they shared. As they chatted and enjoyed brunch, the atmosphere became lighter, filled with laughter and shared stories. The scars from the previous night were still there, but in that moment, the solidarity and love among friends created a space where those scars could begin to heal. Lisa, always full of empathy, looked at Jasmine and said, "You know, Jasmine, it's important that we talk about these experiences. We need to be heard. What happened last night was wrong, but by sharing it, by speaking out about what we face, we're raising awareness, we're educating others." Jasmine smiled, feeling a wave of gratitude. "You're right, Lisa, and I think we need to talk about it more, not just among ourselves, but with others too. We need to make sure the next generations don't have to go through what we've been through." "That's exactly what we need to do," Michael agreed. "And no matter how hard it gets, we'll keep fighting for a future where our kids and their kids won't be judged by the color of their skin." Terrence nodded, adding, "And in the meantime, we'll keep supporting each other, showing that we're more than any stereotype or prejudice. We're in this together." The brunch continued with lively conversations and mutual support. The strength of the bond between the four friends was evident, and they knew that together they could face any challenge that came their way. The friendship, love, and solidarity they shared were the true weapons against prejudice and injustice. A few days after the incident at the restaurant, word of Karen's firing began to spread through the Savannah community. The Magnolia was a well-known restaurant, frequented by many in the city, and Richard's decision to fire the racist employee didn't go unnoticed. Michael and Jasmine continued with their daily routines, but they noticed that the way people looked at them had changed. It wasn't uncommon for them to receive nods or gestures of support from people who recognized the couple on the street or in other establishments. The community was beginning to mobilize, and the discrimination case they had faced had become a topic of discussion. One morning, as they were having coffee together in the kitchen, Jasmine noticed her phone buzzing constantly with messages from friends and acquaintances. "It looks like everyone's talking about what happened at the restaurant," she said, scrolling through her phone. Michael nodded, taking a sip of his coffee. "I figured it would get around, but I didn't expect it to happen this quickly." Jasmine looked at him, concerned. "Do you think this could have any negative impact? I mean, Richard did the right thing, but maybe some people won't see it that way." Michael set his cup down and sighed. "There will always be people who disagree, Jasmine. But what Richard did was take a clear stand against prejudice, and that needs to be recognized. Who knows, maybe this situation will help open more people's eyes." Before Jasmine could respond, Michael's phone rang. He looked at the screen and saw it was Richard. "Speaking of him," Michael said, answering the call. "Hey, Richard, how's it going?" Richard's voice sounded a bit tense on the other end. "Michael, I wanted to talk to you and Jasmine. Can we meet in person?" "I'm at the restaurant right now." Michael glanced at Jasmine, who nodded. "Sure, we're on our way." A few minutes later, Michael and Jasmine arrived at the Magnolia. The restaurant was quieter that morning, with only a few customers occupying the tables. Richard greeted them at the entrance, his expression worried. "Thanks for coming," he said, leading them to a corner table where they could talk more privately. "I wanted you to know that ever since I fired Karen, I've been getting mixed reactions. Most people have supported my decision, but some regular customers aren't happy with what happened." Jasmine frowned. "What do you mean? Some people think you shouldn't have fired an employee for being racist?" Richard sighed, visibly tired. "Unfortunately, yes. Some argue that I was too harsh on her, that I should have given her a second chance. Others think I shouldn't involve myself in social issues at work. But I couldn't just ignore what happened." Michael shook his head, frustrated. It's unbelievable how, even in such a clear-cut situation, there are still people defending the indefensible. "Richard, you did the right thing, and most people recognize that. Richard looked at the two of them, his expression softening. I knew firing Karen was the right thing to do, but I didn't expect the reaction to be so strong. I just wanted you to know what's going on. And more importantly, I wanted to apologize again. Not for firing Karen, but for you having to go through that in my restaurant. Jasmine reached out and gently touched Richard's arm. You don't have to apologize, Richard. We know you can't control other people's actions, and we really appreciate what you did. But the fact that this is generating so much discussion just shows how important this issue is and how it needs to be addressed. Michael nodded in agreement. This kind of situation needs to be brought to light so that people know racism won't be tolerated. It might be uncomfortable for some, but it's necessary. Richard smiled, feeling a bit more at ease. Thank you for understanding. And thank you for continuing to support the restaurant, even after what happened. You two mean a lot to me. Jasmine returned his smile. You mean a lot to us too, Richard. And what you did, taking a firm stand against prejudice, was an important step. Even if some people don't get it, many others have been inspired by your actions. As they continued talking, a customer sitting at a nearby table approached. He was an older man with graying hair who seemed to have overheard part of their conversation. Excuse me, he said, looking at the trio. I just wanted to say that I've been a customer of the Magnolia for years, and I fully support the decision you made, Richard. It's good to see someone who isn't afraid to do the right thing. Richard smiled, clearly touched by the unexpected support. Thank you so much. Your words mean a lot to me. The man nodded and returned to his table, leaving Richard, Michael, and Jasmine with a renewed sense of hope. See? Michael said, smiling. There are more good people out there than bad, Richard. And every little gesture counts. Richard sighed, looking more relieved. I needed to hear that. You're right. We'll keep doing the right thing, and the people who matter will notice. Jasmine smiled at Richard, full of gratitude. We're all in this together. And every little victory brings us closer to a fairer world. The trio continued talking for a while, sharing stories and reaffirming the bond of friendship and respect that united them. In the end, Michael and Jasmine left the restaurant feeling renewed, knowing that despite the challenges, the impact of that incident was helping to open the community's eyes to the need for change. As they walked home, hand in hand, Jasmine looked at Michael and said, I think, in the end, all of this is having a positive impact. Maybe slowly, but things are changing. Michael smiled, squeezing her hand. Yes, Jasmine. And the most important thing is that we're not alone in this fight. Every step we take, every conversation, every decision like Richard's, moves us a little further along. Together, they continued their walk, their hearts lighter and certain that despite the challenges, they were on the right path to building a better future for themselves and everyone around them. A few weeks had passed since the incident at the restaurant, and Michael and Jasmine began to notice significant changes in their lives and in the surrounding community. The situation at the Magnolia had calmed down, but the event's impact still resonated throughout the town. That Saturday morning, Michael and Jasmine decided to visit a local community fair. They were eager to get out of the house and enjoy the lively atmosphere of the event, which featured food stalls, crafts, and live music. As they strolled through the fair, they stopped at a craft booth where they were greeted by a young woman named Ava. She welcomed them with a warm smile. Good morning. Welcome to our booth. We've got some amazing products today. I'm sorry, but I can't help but recognize you. You're Michael and Jasmine, right? Michael smiled, a bit surprised. Yes, that's us. How do you know us? Ava laughed. I saw the news about what happened at the Magnolia. I think it's admirable how you handled the situation. The way Richard responded was really inspiring. Jasmine smiled, touched by the recognition. Thank you, Ava. We appreciate your support. It was a tough situation, but we're glad it led to a broader conversation about prejudice. As they talked, an older woman approached, accompanied by a younger woman. Sorry to interrupt, said the older woman, but I overheard you talking and wanted to express my support. I'm Ava's mother and a regular at the Magnolia. What happened was unacceptable, and I'm relieved that Richard did the right thing. Michael and Jasmine were surprised by the gesture. We really appreciate your support, Michael said. It's comforting to see our community coming together against prejudice. Ava beamed with pride. Our little fair has been a way to bring the community closer and celebrate diversity. I believe each of us can make a difference, and seeing people like you face these situations with courage is a great example for all of us. Jasmine leaned in toward Ava and her mother. You're right. Change starts with small but significant actions. And it's amazing to see the positive impact those actions can have. The group chatted for a while, sharing experiences and perspectives on how the community could support each other and promote inclusion. Michael and Jasmine felt revitalized by the conversation and the show of solidarity. After the conversation, Michael and Jasmine continued to explore the fair. They stopped at several booths, chatted with artisans, and sampled different foods. The day was filled with positive energy, and the festive atmosphere helped push away the memories of the recent incident. Later, as they sat on a bench watching the music and dancing around them, Jasmine turned to Michael with a satisfied smile. Don't you think this event is a perfect example of how our community is coming together? It's good to see that despite the challenges, we still have moments of celebration and support. Michael nodded, looking at the lively scene. Yeah, it's true. Sometimes, we need reminders like this to see the positive side of things. The community is getting stronger, and that's something to be happy about. Jasmine took Michael's hand, holding it tenderly. And the best part is, we know we're not alone on this journey. There are people who share our values and want to make a difference. Michael smiled at her, feeling grateful to have such an understanding and strong partner by his side. We're in this together, Jasmine. And as long as we keep supporting each other and fighting for change, we can make a difference. As the sun began to set and the fair started to wind down, Michael and Jasmine stood up to leave. They were ready to face the future with a new perspective, filled with hope and confidence in the power of the community and the positive impact of their actions. As they walked home, Michael looked at Jasmine and said, I really believe that what happened at the Magnolia was a catalyst for important changes, and that together, we're contributing to a fairer world. Jasmine smiled, feeling inspired. Yes, and every step we take, every conversation we have, is helping to shape a better future. Let's keep doing our part and inspiring others to do the same. The couple continued their walk, feeling renewed by the day's experience. They knew that the fight against prejudice wasn't over, but they were more confident than ever that with love, support, and determination, they could face any challenge that came their way. Life for Michael and Jasmine began to return to normal, but the aftermath of the incident at the restaurant was still fresh in their memories. While the support from the community had been a balm, they still felt the need to talk with Richard about the developments and the broader impact of the situation. It was a clear Tuesday afternoon when Michael and Jasmine decided to visit Richard at the Magnolia for a deeper conversation. The restaurant, now fully operational, seemed to be recovering well after the initial turmoil. Richard greeted them with a warm smile. Michael, Jasmine, it's so good to see you. Come in, please. Can I get you something to drink? Michael and Jasmine sat down at one of the side tables as Richard prepared a tray with drinks. No, thank you, Richard, Michael said. We just wanted to talk a bit about what happened and how things are going now. Richard brought the drinks over and settled into the chair opposite them. Of course, I'd love to hear what you have to say. The last time we talked, I was worried about the fallout. How has it been for you? Jasmine looked at Richard, her gaze reflecting both gratitude and a desire for deeper understanding. It's been a mix of emotions. The community's response has been very positive, but it's also clear that the situation opened up a lot of discussions and challenges. We wanted to know how you're handling it all. Richard sighed, looking at the table for a moment. It's been tough. There's been a lot of support, but also some criticism. I've had to reinforce diversity and inclusion training for all the staff and make some adjustments to how I manage the restaurant. I believe it's an important step, but it's also an ongoing process. Michael nodded, understanding Richard's effort. I'm glad to hear that you're taking steps to ensure this doesn't happen again. And it's good to see the restaurant is adjusting and handling the situation as best as possible. Yes, but I also know that it doesn't solve everything, Richard continued. What happened was just one example of what we still need to confront. And I feel responsible for creating an environment where everyone feels respected and valued. Jasmine, touched by Richard's sincerity, added, I believe what you're doing now is crucial. Real change happens when people in positions of power take a stand and take concrete actions. And you're doing that. Richard smiled, visibly relieved to hear words of support. Thank you, Jasmine. I just hope this helps create a culture of respect and understanding, not just here, but throughout the community. Michael looked at Richard, sensing the sincerity in his words. And you're making a big difference. Sometimes people need to see that there are consequences for prejudiced actions, and that unacceptable behavior won't be tolerated. Richard nodded, reflecting on what Michael had said. I hope so. And honestly, your support and that of the community have given me a new perspective on what's needed to tackle prejudice. I think the most important thing now is to keep the conversation going and ensure everyone in the community is engaged, Jasmine said. We can use what happened to educate more people and inspire change. Richard smiled, a glimmer of hope in his eyes. I agree, and I'm open to any initiative that can help promote that change. If you have ideas or projects in mind, I'm here to support them. Michael and Jasmine exchanged a meaningful look, feeling inspired by Richard's willingness to continue the fight against prejudice. We really appreciate that, Richard, Michael said. We'll think of some ideas and definitely keep you informed. Please do, Richard replied. And again, thank you for your understanding and support. It really means a lot to me. As Michael and Jasmine stood up to leave, Richard walked them to the door, thanking them once more. It was a pleasure talking with you. I hope we can continue working together to make a difference. Absolutely, Jasmine said, shaking Richard's hand. We're all in this together. Michael and Jasmine left the restaurant with a renewed sense of purpose. The conversation with Richard had been a powerful reminder that despite the challenges, there were people willing to fight for justice and inclusion. As they walked home, Michael commented, "It was good to see Richard so committed to change. He's really making a difference." Jasmine smiled, feeling optimistic. Yes, and I think that together, we can keep promoting this change. Every conversation, every action, is part of a larger effort to create a more just world. The couple continued their walk, confident that by keeping the dialogue open and continuing to fight against prejudice, they were contributing to a more inclusive and welcoming future for everyone. As the months passed, Michael and Jasmine felt more motivated to use the visibility that the incident at the Magnolia had brought to promote positive changes in the community. They decided to organize an awareness event about prejudice and inclusion, aiming to engage the local community and create a space for discussion and education. The event was scheduled for a Saturday afternoon at a local community center, and Michael and Jasmine were eager to see the city's response. They had planned a series of activities, including lectures, panel discussions, and cultural performances, to address various aspects of inclusion and diversity. When the day of the event arrived, the community center was buzzing with a crowd of people who came to participate and support the cause. The tables were decorated with informational pamphlets and educational materials, and a group of volunteers was ready to help with the organization. Michael and Jasmine, both wearing t-shirts with the event's logo and an inspiring slogan about inclusion, were excited to get started. They walked around the space, talking to participants and making sure everything was in order. "I can hardly believe we're finally here," Jasmine said, looking around the room full of people. "It was hard work organizing all of this, but seeing the community come together is amazing." Michael smiled, holding Jasmine's hand. "Yeah, it's exciting. And the most important thing is that people are interested in learning and participating. That's what really matters." As they were talking, Richard appeared, a broad smile on his face, with a group of employees from the Magnolia by his side. "Hey, Michael, Jasmine. I'm so glad I could make it. I hope the event is going well." "Richard, it's great to see you here," Jasmine replied, reaching out to shake his hand. "We're so happy you could join us. Everyone's support is crucial to the success of this event." Richard looked around, impressed. "The place looks amazing, and the turnout is incredible. Congratulations on the fantastic work you've done." "Thank you," Michael said. "We hope this event can make a real difference and keep the conversation about inclusion going." The first part of the event kicked off with an opening speech on the importance of inclusion and mutual respect. The speaker, a well-known activist in the city, touched on topics like overcoming biases and creating a more welcoming environment for everyone. After the speech, there was a panel discussion with representatives from various local organizations, including community groups and educational institutions. The panel was moderated by Jasmine, who asked questions and facilitated a discussion on how each organization could contribute to a more inclusive society. "I'd like to ask," Jasmine said, directing the question to one of the panelists, "what are some of the strategies you've used to educate and engage the community on diversity and inclusion?" The panelist, a local educator, responded, "We focus on school programs that promote empathy and understanding from an early age. Additionally, we organize workshops and training for businesses and organizations, helping them implement inclusive policies." The conversation continued, with various participants contributing their ideas and experiences. Michael watched, pleased with how the event was unfolding. He knew that each conversation, each insight shared, was helping to build a deeper understanding and promote real change. Later in the afternoon, the most anticipated part of the event was about to begin, a cultural performance showcasing the richness of diversity in the community. There was live music, dance, and an exhibition of local art, all celebrating the city's diversity and creativity. As the performance was underway, Michael and Jasmine withdrew to a quieter corner of the community center, where they could reflect on the success of the event. "Look at all these people," Michael said, amazed. "This was more than I imagined. People are really interested in learning and making a difference." Jasmine smiled, touched by the impact of the event. "I feel the same. And the support from everyone, including Richard and the restaurant team, made all the difference. I think we've managed to create a space where the conversation about inclusion can continue." Richard approached them, looking satisfied. "This was a wonderful event. Congratulations to both of you. I really believe we're making progress, and events like this are essential to keep the work going." Michael shook Richard's hand. "Thank you, Richard. Your support and presence mean a lot to us. And it's great to see the community getting involved and making a difference." Jasmine added, "Yes, and the most important thing is that this is just the beginning. We need to keep promoting inclusion and creating spaces where everyone feels welcome and respected." As the event wound down and people began to disperse, Michael and Jasmine were exhausted but filled with a sense of accomplishment. They had succeeded in creating a platform for discussion and education, and they were eager to see the fruits of their efforts. As they left the community center, Michael looked at Jasmine and asked, "Do you think what we did here will make a difference?" Jasmine smiled, holding his hand. "I believe it will. Every small action, every conversation, every event like this contributes to change. And if we keep working together, we can create a real impact." They walked home hand in hand, their hearts light, knowing they were contributing to a more just and inclusive future. The road ahead was still long, but the journey they had begun was an important step in the right direction.